Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Get Up and Get Out podcast. I'm your host, Steve Crisell, and this is episode with Travis Lee Bailey. I'm reminded of a quote by a very good man, a very funny man, the one, the only George Carlin. And he said once, or maybe many times, behind every cynical person is a disappointed idealist. And I I fully subscribe to that, because as a expat, as a person who slightly dabbles in history, it's very easy to feel disenfranchised when you learn some of the atrocities that your country has done in the name of freedom or justice. I like to believe that every person is good, intrinsically good. They want to make the best for themselves and their loved ones. We're born into families and societies that shape and mold an image that we come to associate as, this is me, or this is what I am. And for some, along the way, they educate themselves, they go to college, they might go to the library, read books, watch documentaries, and they start to analyze their past. And some discover that this reality of who they are is simply a mentally repeated copy of what others have told them. This whole time we're making choices, right? Or so it seems that we're making choices. We make choices based on a multitude of variabilities, and in some or most instances, the real reality is we're probably not really making up our own mind. When do we really know if we're making our own choices, or if we're simply being coerced to make that choice? Self-education, inquiring, asking hard questions, it's then that these people, me, you, society, that can start to make more real choices. You start to build a new reality. But is it good? Is it right? Is it moral? Today on the show, I have a guest. And I'm thankful that I can be known as a person that people can trust. Because I was told by this person that it's very hard to trust people that are trustworthy, because trustworthy people are usually those that can be compromised. This person learned to trust me against what maybe he was thinking or feeling, and for that I'm grateful. His story may sound like a movie. You may even think of him as daring, bold, or you might think he's a traitor, or a misguided individual, or a patriot just trying to make the best choices that he knows how in order to put their country back on a right path. I'd like to introduce to you my guest, Travis Lee Bailey. Travis, welcome to the show.
Stephen, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What did you think of the intro?
Absolutely brilliant. Just to build off what you said about George Carlin, an optimist, as they say in Russia, an optimist is an informed pessimist. Or rather, a pessimist is an informed optimist. So, yes.
Yes, that rings true almost on a daily basis. Welcome to Moscow again, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're gonna dive deep as we always do. Would you care to give our audience just a brief intro into who you are, and just anything you'd like to say? Just a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Travis Bailey. I'm an American from Washington, D.C. I've lived here in Moscow for the past 4 to 5 years. And the reason I'm here is because internationally, the United States is the most violent country in the world internationally. And I'm here to find and work with international organization, a think tank, a consultancy firm for the Russian government, which will help subvert economically the United States.
When you say subvert, can you elaborate on that? What do you like? What is the goal behind the word subvert?
Subvert is a non-violent word. I definitely do not promote violence in any form whatsoever. Stalin is attributed to saying that one death is a tragedy and a million is a statistic, and every person is valuable. That said, I firmly believe that the United States, there's different ways based on history that the United States can be less of an international threat.
And I'd like to jump back a little bit just to kind of give people a little more in-depth understanding of your background. Would you care to just list off, your university credentials?
Absolutely.
I know you have a few.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently, a couple of weeks ago, in May, I graduated with my 4th degree. I'm getting a master's in sociology at the Arizona State University. And before that, I graduated from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, with a joint degree. I'm a lawyer and then also international affairs. And then before that, I also have a bachelor's from Utah.
And that was at
Utah State University.
Yeah, but the degree, it was
marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah,
it was like economics or something. Yeah, marketing. The first hard question of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you love America?
That's a good question. There was a television show that was the Shahs of San Bernardino or something like that some time ago. It was about Iranians. And this Iranian woman had been she was born after the fall of Iran, and the Shah was deposed, and she was part of the Shah, and then she moved to California. And she described herself in the first episode as emotionally homeless, which I thought was just brilliant.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so basically the gist of it is I love the American people. There is so much that I love about the country. I remember when I returned to Utah to help my family when they were sick, I remember that it was starting to get dark, and it was dusk, and there was light coming through the window of the screen window, and I remember I haven't seen that type of light for years, and there's this distinct way that Utah looks, and I'm like, I even miss the light that comes through the windows. But do I love Americans and do I love America? I love Americans, but there's a term self-hating Jew, which is thrown around a lot. Sure. Naomi Chomsky is called a self-hating Jew. I'm a self-hating American.
I think that pretty much solidifies it.
Yeah.
It's a very good explanation of it. You grew up so religiously through the Mormon faith, and I believe it's the Mormons that practice polygamy.
Yes.
So I know I don't want to get into this whole story.
Of course not.
That's a road we don't want to go down.
No.
But it's just interesting to bring up the fact that what is it about polygamy that is rooted in Christian values, or the other way around? So. And how did that play into your beliefs?
Well, I'm the proud product of polygamy. Both sides.
You don't say it just because it sounds nice, right? It's just but there's some underlying truth to that.
Oh, absolutely. Both of my great grandparents were polygamists. I'm direct descendant of one of the secondary leaders of the founder, Joseph Smith.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the idea behind that is the idea that Mormons can become gods and that they'll have their own planets and have spirit children came from Joseph Smith actually being a horny bastard. So, and he had some definite mental issues because he probably, So, that's a whole other podcast. But Joseph Smith. So that's basically the basis of it is. But since that time, ironically, they have become a very conservative religion, and now they ostracize those people that still practice it.
Okay. So the Joseph Smith side of things.
Yeah, correct. The largest church now. So but it's just there's this persecution complex with any small cult. You have this persecution complex, and even decades and generations later, there's this kind of like us against them, the whole world.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
very, very interesting. So how did you get into law? I mean, because you went into marketing.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So how did you end up making the switch from marketing into law? Well,
I realized I traveled to Malta when I was still in college. I had a college degree. And I was getting my college degree, and then I took a semester in Malta. It was my first time overseas. As you know, less than 50% of Americans have a passport. And so when I actually traveled to Malta, it opened my eyes to this entire new world. The night before, a couple weeks before I left, I read a book about alternate realities, and I'm like, this will never happen in my lifetime. And then I go to Malta, and I'm like, this is an alternate reality. You don't have to be American, you don't have to think American. There's a completely new world out there. And so I came back from Malta, and I went directly to my administrator, and I says, okay, how do I finish my business degree as fast as possible? And he says, get a marketing degree. I'm like, okay. I got a marketing degree. I went into the Peace Corps in Odessa, Ukraine, and I was there from between 2000 to 2002.
Wait, you were there during 9/11?
Yeah, and that's changed everything. And then Putin had just become president a couple of days before I went into the Peace Corps.
So you went into the Peace Corps. Putin had already become president, and then about a year later, 9/11 took place. Talk about your time in Odessa. Culture. I don't know how it is. Do you have a base? Are you able to leave base? Interact with the local communities? So, what were some of the highlights?
There were things that I would never have been able to do in the States. In 2000, I basically wrote and published my first book through a non-governmental organization. And then what would happen is both the Navy and the Coast Guard would come in, and I would find money for them and, actually orphanages for them to help rebuild. And so that was the two highlights of my time. I was a business volunteer, but it was focused on charity work and helping people.
Okay. And this was a mutual relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine.
Yes, and they're still the largest. Ukraine, the U.S. Peace Corps in Ukraine is still the largest in the entire world.
So any other Peace Corps located in any other geographical location,
Ukraine is the biggest.
Ukraine is the biggest.
Absolutely.
Got it. So my apologies. You met a fellow Peace Corps volunteer worker, and he was Arab.
Oh, no, this was actually a friend. He was a dentist. His name was Jazz, and he was from Dubai. And we were really close friends. We would have shashlik, which is a kind of, how do you describe shashlik?
Shish kebab.
A shish kebab, yes, that's the word.
Again, another foreign word that Americans use to talk about food.
And and then we're both forgetting that because we don't speak English enough.
we don't speak it. We're Americans. We don't speak English. So you met Jazz in Odessa?
Yes.
And he was living in Odessa?
Yes.
As a dentist?
Yes.
He was working as a dentist?
He was going to college. At the time, I was in my late 20s, and I had all these Arab friends, and so 9/11 was happening, and there was such xenophobia in America, and yet I'm thinking to myself, these people are the best, most kind, most beautiful people I've ever met in my entire life.
And then you go on to say something that he said to you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, he was my best friend, and we were walking along the promenade. Odessa's weather is just absolutely beautiful all the time. And it was right after 9/11, and I said, Jazz, I'm just, what do you think's happening? And I was just so distraught about what had happened, like everybody else. And he says, if they come, I'll kill them. We'll kill them. And I'm like, I was just shocked when he said that. And he was referring to the United States. He was referring to his people being threatened by the United States. And we are able to, as people, we say these comments that sometimes we don't even know we say. And we say it in passing. And just like Howard Zinn, which we talked about before, he had a bombardier who died 2 weeks later who was very anti-imperialist. And his one little argument with Howard Zinn changed his life forever. That one sentence changed my life forever, and it opened my eyes.
So for him, his reality, Jazz's reality, is that America had been kind of meddling in his country's affairs for so many years. This was this was his reality. So he sees like maybe a certain faction of people from his country, or maybe at that time we probably didn't even have enough information about what was really going on. But the blame was definitely headed towards the Middle East, and we rightfully so. A lot of these people in this area were frightened about American troops. Within weeks, they're going to start landing in their country, and probably starting some more atrocities that they unfortunately might have experienced in the past.
Absolutely.
So that is in your friend's mind when he said what he said, and we could look at it from an American standpoint, and we go, wow, what an a-hole! Like, because even just from the friend standpoint, here this is two guys that are friends, and he's outright saying this to his American friend. How did that make you feel?
I was shocked, and because he wasn't saying he was going to kill me, he was just basically saying to Americans in general.
Okay, so you were shocked, but did you just for that moment, did you feel threatened by your friend?
Oh, no. He was the kindest, most giving person I'd met in my entire life.
So you said, just like Zinn, this was a turning point for you. So explain that turning point and where did it lead to?
In the Bible, and especially in the Book of Mormon, they talk about planting seeds. That when you are religious, what you can do is you can plant seeds that later grow into something bigger.
Sure.
So when you're a missionary, I was a missionary for 2 years, very strict, very strict. Basically, we were always planting seeds, and that's what we do as people, whether they're good seeds or bad seeds. We sometimes can change somebody's life forever. And that one conversation just really changed my life. And at that point, I started to really study the United States and the history of the United States. But I started to study about the KGB and the CIA, and I found out that the Peace Corps had actually that technically the Peace Corps publicly says that you are not supposed to have Peace Corps volunteers cannot be CIA. I found this congressional testimony, which basically said that, in fact, the CIA can actually be in the Peace Corps.
They can.
They can, absolutely. And so when I actually left the Peace Corps, even my wife didn't know about it at the time.
You were married at the time.
She was my fiancée at the time.
And she was American, Russian?
She was Russian, yes. And so I sent letters to all of the everybody, like newspapers, everybody. I had done extensive research, and I sent to 200 media organizations basically explaining that the Peace Corps, quoting the congressional record, that the Peace Corps will allow CIA into their organization.
Why would it be bad to have CIA agents in the Peace Corps?
The gist of it is this, is that what happens is they're training to be CIA officers. They're training to be intelligence officers. They come over here. the Peace Corps. And fortunately, the Peace Corps was kicked out just a few months after I wrote this letter in 2003, about 5 months after the Peace Corps was kicked out of Russia because they said they were spies. Now, they may have been spies and they may not have been spies, but the bottom line is this, is that what happens is that you have two groups of people. You have the Peace Corps, and I am a Peace Corps, alumni. What did I do? I immediately went to Washington, D.C., and then what do? I sign up for the Department of State. I took the test twice. I failed it twice. But all these people, they go in and they do intelligence, and they basically get jobs in intelligence service, including the CIA. And what happens with Mormons? They come home from their mission. The majority of them go to BYU. In BYU, what happens is that the largest recruitment center in the nation is at BYU, Utah, which is Brigham Young University in Utah, in Provo. And so what they do is they recruit people. And so basically, the Peace Corps and the Mormon Church, they basically create these organizations where they can later, they're in training to be in the intelligence service.
Interesting. And why do you think that they have one of the largest recruitment or training facilities based out of BYU?
Because Mormons are the Mormon cult, they teach people to be very subservient.
Yeah, very obedient.
Very obedient.
Yeah. Not asking questions.
They're not asking questions. They're very Republican, very conservative.
Sure.
They support, like one of the prophets, Hinckley, he supported the Vietnam War. He's now passed away. And then he also supported the Iraq War. So they're very patriotic. Yeah. And plus they know a language.
Plus they
know the culture, they know the language after they come home from their mission.
True,
yeah.
True, right.
And their language abilities that missionaries have, Mormon missionaries, is much, much better than Peace Corps volunteers, because they truly live they truly live the culture.
I want to touch on something that took place in Utah. At one of the, I guess maybe it was State Department, but it was definitely a government facility of some level. And you were an employee there. Now, there were some newspaper articles that I came upon that, as writers tend to do, they like to use very extravagant ways of introducing an article. And I think they said something like, wannabe spy, like, ousted in like Utah State Department or something like that. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop with that.
Yeah,
and I want to let you tell the story because it's about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I read what I read, but I want to. So, what were you doing there? As far as like your job, what did that job entail, and what did you end up trying to do, and why?
Well, just to go back a little bit more, I was in Washington D.C. and right before that, I went to Russia. I actually found a document. It was actually on the street, and it was this. I still don't know what it is. It was this confidential record, and I actually went to. I have this on tape. I actually went to the Washington Post and gave that to them, and they never contacted me back. I actually dropped it off in their mailroom. Said, "So and so, can you take this?" And so then I came to Russia with the document, a copy of it. And I sent it to WikiLeaks, and then I also sent it to the FSB. And so I was like, here's this information. I'm not a spy. I never have been a spy.
But what was the document?
The document that I had?
Yeah, that you found on the street.
It's a cybersecurity document. I could send it to you. So,
a cybersecurity document. And you just found it on the street in D.C.?
I found it in a folder. At the time I was... I was outside of an apartment waiting for somebody, and there was this folder there, and I picked it up, and I was like, "Wow, it's this full color like it's a PowerPoint presentation. It was about 56 pages long, and it had classified and all this secret and things like that. And I'm like, wow. So
your first thought wasn't to bring it to like the FBI
of course not.
CIA.
I mean, any of our listeners that know anything about these organizations, nothing would happen. So like,
yeah, but it would go back to the hands of the people that created it.
Yeah, but the thing is they were talking about cybersecurity and things like that, and maybe there was something there. And so that's the reason why I gave it to the Washington Post. And then ironically, the next day, the guy that was in charge of technology, I met him in the Washington Post. I got his card, but he never contacted me back. So I'm like, okay, if you guys don't want to contact me. There's actually a movie that's a brilliant movie in the 70s, and I haven't found the title of it. I wish I could. But of course, in the 70s, it was after the Vietnam War, and there was Nixon, and there was the church hearings, if you've ever heard of those. And they were kind of opening up all the terrible things that the CIA had done. And there was this movie, and the guy is trying to run to the New York Times, and the other guy who is the protagonist trying to run to the New York Times, and then this guy that's like working for the CIA or FBI, he stops him in front of the New York Times, and he says, "We own the New York Times." It's like, it's there.
What was the name of this movie?
And I can't for the life of me remember it. So if any of your listeners know about this particular movie,
let us know.
Let us know, please. And that's the thing is like, and I knew this was going to happen with the Washington Post, and that's the same thing that happened with the state of Utah, is I knew the end result. I just wanted to see what would happen. And so basically I get this job, and what I had done is I'd completely scoured my Facebook posts. I had completely changed my resume. Everything on it was truthful. But I'd hidden all my political views. And so they hired me, and they really needed somebody. And it was the technological department for the entire state of Utah.
What was your position?
My position was as an admin.
Okay.
For this particular, as mentioned in there were actually 2 articles in that particular piece. Mm-hmm. So, and then I'm there for maybe 2 days, and on the second day, there's a presentation. I wish I would have recorded it. There's a presentation about how often, like Russian bots, they had a breakdown. It was the head of the department, and he was saying how often, like there's people from Russia and from China that try to infiltrate the state of Utah, and there's been a lot of controversy about different states being hacked by people from other countries. And so I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And so what happened was that I was working on a Friday, and I was talking to a contact here who he's never official. He was KGB before. I'm almost certain. And I was calling him on the phone and talking to him about being here and where I worked, and so I started to send information out through my email, just different information. And then I put some information on a USB drive, and by Monday they were like freaking out. It was quite easy for them to catch me. And so at that point I was like, I'm going to get fired, and so I decided to go to the newspaper. And
wow,
yeah.
Why are you sending out any type of information from a secure?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what was the goal? Why?
To test the security.
But isn't that for like security testing people? Like not an admin of, like why?
Why would I test the security?
Yeah. Was that in your job description?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, so the question is, why would you test the security?
Because there were documents that would potentially be very helpful for people here in Russia, because they were trying to hack into Russian systems.
But why would you want to help Russian people?
Because internationally, the United States is the most violent country in the world, and Russia is the strongest country that is opposed to the United States.
So you were a sympathizer?
Absolutely.
This is getting deep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hey guys, while we're on our break, just want to say a big thank you to Adagio Apart Hotel and Accor Family for allowing us the space here to film. And now, back to the show. Dude, it's so crazy. So, you left Ukraine from the Peace Corps. You go back to Utah. But at that time, you're now married. And you head off to Texas to finish up your JD.
Yeah, to go to school for my JD.
To go to school.
Yeah.
And what school did you go to?
It was a Catholic school, actually.
St. Mary's.
Yes, I was close to one of the nuns there. It was actually St. Mary's, yes.
Yeah, San Antonio.
Yeah, San Antonio.
Man, I've got a good memory. So you chill out there. And now just to understand, did your wife come with you to San Antonio?
Yes.
Okay.
We were together for 12 years, married for 10.
12 years. And you eventually end up in D.C., right? So, and that was about 2007?
2007.
And talk to us about the next 7 years.
Sure.
Right? So all the way up until, I guess, about you, we'll get into you coming into Russia in 2014. But so for those 7 years, walk us through what's going on.
Sure. I was really angry at the United States at the time, and I tried to get a peace job with a peace organization, and they were just absolutely ridiculous. They were just a joke. And so I couldn't find a job in that particular field, and so I just started to apply more broadly. And I got a job with the health department for the federal government, and I started there, and it was a legal department. And I graduated with my. I actually took the bar in Washington D.C. and then I actually passed the bar. And I remember I thought I had failed it, and I'd already failed the Texas bar. And there's a couple of times in my life where, and I don't know if you've ever had this happen, is that where you are so overcome with feelings that you're crying and your knees go out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sure. My dog died.
Yeah, your dog died. Yes, we can both relate. My dog just passed away about 3 weeks ago. Yeah. When did your dog die?
2 months after I came to Russia.
6 years ago. Wow.
7.
Wow.
Yeah, 2012. I watched him get hit by a car, and it was painful. It was really, really bad. But another story, another time.
Again, I passed the bar. And then I was working with the health department with the federal government, and there was just this anger. And going back to the George Carlton quote, if you can say it one more time.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So it was behind every cynical person is a disappointed idealist.
Yes, absolutely.
So and that was cynicism.
The cynicism, yes,
so.
Absolutely. So that was definitely my case, and I couldn't find a job for the life of me with any peace organization. And I got more and more. I would go to like seminars, and I'd go to retreats for lawyers to basically work for organizations that fought against the United States internationally. I was unable to find some of these a job in that particular field. And then what happened was that in approximately it was 2013. There was a case that was up to the federal level, and what had happened was that there were some people in the 50s, I believe. There were some blacks in other countries, and I believe Guatemala. They were actually given syphilis by the United States government, and
why would they do that?
An experiment on what syphilis is. So
just trialing it on people that aren't their own
which
people.
Is if you know anything about the history of the United States, that's just common. That's happened many times. Actually, Obama officially apologized for the same thing happening to people here in the United States. They did the same thing to black people here in the United States. So there was a case that came up, and basically there is a certain laws that foreign people cannot prosecute the United States for their actions, and so we had to defend that case, me and another lawyer, and we won. And
in favor of the United States.
In favor of the United States, so they got nothing. These are the people that had actually died, or relatives of the people that had died from syphilis.
And that's pretty tough. So, 2012, 2013, you end up quitting working for the Department of Health and Human Services. Why did you quit, and what did you end up doing as a result of that?
I just, as I mentioned, it was because of that lawsuit. I was just getting to the point where I had gone as far as I possibly could. We talked about being present, and we talked about being in the now, and we talked about following that spirit that we have, and all of us have inside of us. There's a quote, and I have this same quote on all my emails, and it's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, and it basically talks about how sometimes you have to leave your friends and family behind to follow that inner spirit that you have, and sometimes that responsibility for duty, you have to leave your friends and family, and that's exactly what I did when I left the Department of Health and Human Services. Is that there was no more places to go for me, and I wasn't doing what I loved. There was no opportunities to find a job in peace. There was no opportunities to find employment working to oppose the congressional military industrial complex. And so I knew that if I stayed at this cushy job, like Snowden, that I would never accomplish anything, and I would die miserable. And so one day I just had enough, and I quit.
What has been your craziest, weirdest, or most uncomfortable experience in Russia, and how did you handle it? I know the answer, but the audience doesn't.
Yeah.
Before I want you to give the answer, but I want you to go back and talk about how you came to have that experience, right? Because I know where that experience took place. Yeah. But I want you to start back home.
Oh, absolutely.
And bring us into it. So what's the answer?
Sure. The answer is that I walked into the FSB building, the KGB building on LeBlanca, and I says, I want to help. So...
Okay.
Twice.
Twice. First one, they're like, we are out to lunch. Come back in 20 minutes. Were you just bored that day and decided, oh, this is a nice building. I'm just going to go in and... This isn't Детский мир. I was expecting all the kids' toys. I'm in the wrong building. So what's the backstory behind
It's
this?
kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I thought I was going to the immigration site before this, and I actually ended up at the FSB, and I tried to open one of the big doors because I was trying to get into
wooden doors.
The big ones, because I had no idea where I was at, and then I asked the police officer that was searching the trunk, and he says, "This is the FSB." I was like, "Wow!" I was so scared at the time, but that was my first experience of actually touching the FSB building. So, but that said, so I came over, I had this document that I had found that I still don't understand. It's a document, it's a cybersecurity document, and at no time did I think I was a spy. I've never thought I was a spy. But I had this document, and I had this dedication, I had this experience, I had this education, and I had these skills that I thought that would be able to present. And so I come over here, I'm teaching English. I get on to Davai Pajem Saya.
But why go on a show about let's get married if you want a political asylum?
Everybody, it's a joke now. The show itself is that everybody knows how it works, and everybody goes on that show to get publicity. And it was my opportunity to get nationwide publicity on Channel 1.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, and everybody does that, and that's the reason why they get foreigners now, is because everybody is cynical about the program. Everybody's asking me if the people are actors. We're not actors.
It's the Jerry Springer of Russia.
Absolutely, yes. And so basically, I walked out of the presentation, which was terrible, and then I was going to sue Channel 1 because I didn't understand the contract, and I wanted 30 seconds of recording time, basically explaining who I am, and they would have the option of cutting it out or not.
Sure.
But then they refused, and they just went ahead and broadcast it anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
So that was April. And so at this
2014.
2016. I was here from 2015 to 2016. And then what happened was that there was all this stuff going on with my visa, and I was like, you know what? The real reason here is because I'm looking for political asylum. I have this document that I don't know if it's any of use, this 65-page PowerPoint. I'm trying to show that I'm dedicated to the Russia. And so I walked into the FSB on La Blanca. And so eventually this guard comes up and to me, and he says, I'm just looking for political asylum. And he says he didn't really understand English, and I hadn't studied the word political asylum, so I didn't even know what it was. And so he basically said, "Go out." Damn it, yes. Well, that was exactly. And so what happened is that I walked out, and I was so stressed, and I walked out, and then I look across the street, and there was a law firm for lawyers, and it said East, and that's all it said. And I'm like, that is a perfect place to go. So I go in there and I apply for political asylum. And that's the first time I applied. So, and my 2016. Right now, I'm a refugee with no passport, and my refugee status has been appealed. It's like I only know one person that's got political asylum. At least he claims to have political asylum. It's almost impossible. Even Snowden doesn't have political asylum. So currently, I'm a refugee from America.
So where's your American passport?
Oh, I have an American passport. There's just no I'm sorry, did I say I have no passport?
No,
I have no visa in the passport.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't have a visa in your American passport that allows you to have any sort of definitive, rights to whether it's work or study or...
Yeah, I have a pending refugee status. It was denied the first time, and then it's been appealed. And I could definitely send you the document, so...
Another hard question.
Yeah, of course.
Would you say that your goal, maybe your overarching goal, is to help or to hurt America?
It's to hurt it economically.
And why?
And why? Because the economics is the fuel to the international wars. There's a proxy war going on with Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and most Americans don't even know this. And basically, Trump gave Saudi Arabia the green light to continue the war that started with Obama. And what are the Saudi Arabians doing? They have American airplanes, they have American bombs, they have American trained pilots, and they're using American intelligence to bomb Yemen to the Stone Age. And that's what's going on right now. It's a proxy war. The only thing that's not there is American pilots in those seats.
Got it. I want to kind of wrap things up. First of all, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
For coming in and thank you for your flexibility, and it's your story is difficult as an American to an American. I think it's like we talked about this off screen, and on one hand, I'm like, how can he do that to America? Because it's my image of America that I feel is being tainted, but yet I'm educated enough to know what the real America is. And the real America can be America for a lot of different people, but, for most people that are still living in their matrix world, much like here in Russia, your life is movie theaters and, I'm thinking Torgovin Center, like malls, shopping malls, and nice job and a nice family, kind of like the American dream. And it's all of the politics involved that make you sad to know that I'm an American, and it's hard to be an American and be in other countries, and they can at any time come up to you and say, do you know what your country is doing to my country? Or Are you aware of these things that are happening because at the hands of your government, right? And how are you supposed to be an ambassador of your country when you know that these types of things are happening? Do you become the apologetic? Do you become, you know what, I'm really sorry that my country's government is doing that, but please understand that what my country's government does isn't a reflection of who I am.
It is.
But that's like the point.
That's absolutely a reflection. Our leaders are a dark black mirror, a dark reflection of who we truly are.
Right. Yeah, that's come up once or twice in my findings. So what do you think the future is for you here in Russia?
Well, I'm currently working with a legal consultancy. We're helping expats. By the end of 2020, I want to work for a government consultancy, a government think tank. There's several that I've attended some of their meetings and turned in resumes. Ideally, and we all have big dreams, is that by 2030 I will be a Russian citizen. I'm already have applied for Russian residency, and by that time I want to be the first American that's ever been a member of the Duma.
Lofty goals.
Lofty goals.
Got to start learning Russian. Not Ukrainian Russian. Russian.
Russian.
Travis, I want to say thank you for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure. We're going to elbow bump this episode away, and I'm going to tell you guys, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Get Up and Get Out podcast. Travis Lee Bailey. Get up, get out, and discover the world on your terms. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
All right. Brilliant.
We want to thank you guys for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time. And we hope that today's show brought you some great tips and some powerful positivity and motivation to do what you've always dreamed of doing, no matter what. If today's message was powerful for you, consider sharing this episode with someone who might benefit, or consider leaving us a review over on iTunes. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a 1-star or 5-star review. Reviews are a great way of sharing your thoughts with us. We're always striving to be better than our last episode, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. In addition, each review helps us spread the word about what we're trying to accomplish here. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you know someone who might be a great guest, please send us an email at guest@gugopodcast.com. Feel free to follow us on Instagram at Stephen Crisel, StephenKrisel, or on Facebook, the Get Up and Get Out podcast. As always, our podcasts are edited by Valery Lugov, and our music is by Thomas Skalderberg, entitled Celebration of Life. Once again, thanks for joining us. This is the Get Up and Get Out podcast. I'm your host, Steve Crisel, and remember, get up, get out, and discover the world on your terms.